Welcome back. Welcome back. Another week, another day, another dollar. Um,
Another rough
this is.
pool.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's been rough. I mean, this is the bear market washing out the
Yeah.
bullshit as much as possible, I guess. But yeah, another crypto market recap. Number 21. So yeah, let's just get right into it. I mean, once again, Uniswap. You know, talking about the fee switch and a potential proposal that could be passed. But like, I mean, come on, like this is just embarrassing at this point. I mean, like they don't care about their token holders at all, and like, I mean, this has been known for a very long time. But like, you could tell that the community is constantly trying to like gain some value from like the protocol itself, but because they're holding the token, which makes sense. I mean, like I wouldn't want to hold their token just because I can be able to vote. Especially like if they could just hold a larger majority of it and be able to sway votes whenever they please. I just wouldn't feel comfortable at that point. So like I mean I would be in the same position as them trying to get a proposal passed where like there could be some potential revenue to be like earned back to the holders, but like apparently this is not the case. Even if they do turn on this fee switch, I mean, it's still not even gonna go to the token holders. It's gonna go directly to the protocol and their treasury to be
Bruh.
spent on growth. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, what more growth do you need? You're already like the number
Right.
one Lex in the whole ecosystem.
What I can see from this happening is that as soon as they implement that tax, it's going to have a liquidity run on the protocol itself. Same thing happened with Luna Classic, where they implemented a burn tax and then the volume dipped down by a considerable percent. And I could definitely see the same thing happening to Uniswap, exiting to other dexes to basically escape those fees. So it's going to be interesting to see after it's implemented what the effect is going to be on the project overall. Who
I
knows? Maybe
mean,
Uniswap might be number two pretty soon.
yeah, like I mean, is it like if there's a Dex that comes out, right? They replicate a lot of the success that Uniswap has. Maybe they have some features that really make them better, and that's why they've, you know, they've grown in popularity very quickly or something like that, right? All they will need to do is just implement something where like the holders of the token not only has governance say, but they actually earn a portion of the trading fees. That's literally all they need to do. And then I get it. There's some aspect legality wise which makes that a bit difficult. But I mean, come on. There has to be some better solutions, whether you use the fees to redistribute to token holders or you use the fees to buy back the token, or something along the lines of like just adding value back to the token holders. Like it's necessary for something like this. It's necessary for a lot of projects in general. I mean, if you're not adding value back to the token holder, then what's the point of someone holding the token to begin with?
Right. It's a very fine
Yeah.
balance that you have to keep if you own a project like that, where you have to not only make sure that the project is holding a profit and being profitable, but also you have to have value, or you have to keep value with your token holders as well. And
I mean, sorry to cut you off there.
you're fine. So just to wrap that up, it's a very fine balance because it can go either one way or the other. And if it does go one way or the other, the price itself can tank.
Yeah, and I would add on to that, even if all the fees did go to like token holders, then it's still massively overvalued, the unit
Yep.
token.
Yeah.
But that's of course not so much Uniswap's fault. I mean, that's just people buying in and like
Right.
hype building up this huge market cap. But yeah, even if all the protocol fees went to the token holders, then still the token could be worth 100 times less, and that would be a more reasonable valuation, honestly. Like,
No, seriously.
Yeah.
It's literally just a DEX. I mean, come on. Like the idea is great. Don't get me wrong, right? But this is not 2020 anymore. 2020
yeah,
was the hype where it was like, oh wow, this is a decentralized exchange. Wow, I can yeah, that was then. You can
Yeah.
value at whatever you then. Bunch of dexes, a bunch of dexes that are building various different things on top of the dex is adding more value to the token rather than it just being a dex, and people adding more features to the dex in general to make it like more usable, like for users, and like, just have more features in general to make like even trading on that specific dex more profitable than trading on other specific dexes. So like it's kind of crazy to see this valuation for Uniswap. So I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, uh,
Yeah. I mean, to
it's
add on
it's
to the
just
accessibility
frustrating.
part, yeah, man. To add on to the accessibility part for the average person, that also includes some kind of adoption or mass adoption among, uh, the countries of the world and governments actually having clear regulatory or at least a stance on what crypto is instead of just leaving it in a gray area. And you can see some uh, entities like China, for example, they've recently acknowledged NFTs as digital property, so it's its own classification, and they have their own specific code for that. And now you're seeing
Smart.
plans for CBDCs all across the world, where physical currency is slowly but surely being driven out. I mean, it's been very gradual over the last few years, but I mean, you could really see the beginning of it with direct
Yeah.
deposit and how you can just get your paycheck deposited directly into your bank account without having to do a
Mm.
cash transfer. And now you're getting more and more integrated with technology, and now you're seeing CBDCs slowly but surely being developed and adopted by centralized governments of the world. And even Indonesia recently has announced that they're trying to make CBDCs the only legal digital tender in their country. Um, so there's several different stances that you can take regarding crypto if you are a regulatory agency or if you're a government, and there's a lot of options that you have right now. So it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of years to see how different countries in the world react to the rise of crypto overall and the adoption of crypto as a technology.
Yeah, I'm not super hopeful in that regard with regards to regulation. I think, like, honestly, probably like the third world countries are gonna adopt it faster than first world countries because
For
first
sure.
world countries have way more to lose in terms of, um,
Exactly.
yeah, basically the stability and power that their currency already has. Like, obviously, the dollar is the
I mean,
world reserve currency, so I think probably the US will be the last to really adopt Bitcoin or something like
yeah,
that.
I mean, to
Um,
expand onto that even more, like you could see the difference between more developed countries and less is that there's more infrastructure overall, whether it be legal framework,
yeah,
financial framework, etc. And developing countries like third world countries don't have that kind of infrastructure, which serves as a support, but it also serves as a barrier for any new technology to be adopted more easily. So you have places like El Salvador where they didn't have a lot of infrastructure financially to begin with, but you see massive adoption of cryptocurrencies, and they're getting ahead of their neighbors in that aspect. And you can see, even though there's a lot of instability in that region, there's still a lot of progress being made towards adopting that technology, and they are slowly but surely getting or benefiting from it.
yeah, it's much easier to adopt new technology if you don't have to replace all infrastructure. That's basically what
Yeah,
it comes down to, I think. Um,
exactly.
and yeah, I mean, also here in Europe, I mean, they're just basically fossils with everything they do. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
they don't really have much hope for Europe either, even though the euro, of course, is not a world reserve currency. But yeah, maybe we'll see some interesting regulations pop off in the next few years in different countries. Let's see.
for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. So just starting off on a in a lighter mood, something good that's going on, like Chainlink staking. is coming out today. So like that's definitely really exciting. I mean, it's definitely not the full staking. There's still so much that is missing in regards to staking that like it's going to be implemented in later iterations of staking. So it's still exciting. You know, you being able to actually try to get in. You could, go to this link, check if you got early access. It's specific to like you holding link at a specific time whenever they did a snapshot of sorts. If you had a wallet, if you had it on MetaMask, if you have it on decentralized exchanges. I mean after FTX, you should know better.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's really good. I mean, there's still certain versions that still like in like still being planned out. Like they mentioned here that like they think they hope to have 0.2 released in the next 9 to 12 months. I mean, that would be pretty great because then like it would open up a lot more of what staking really is. Because this version of staking, I would say that like it would be the most ideal version because of the lack of like certain features that is necessary for securing the
yeah.
Chainlink network.
I mean, there's no slashing, so
Exactly.
that's pretty much what Chainlink is, or the idea of Chainlink is built upon, right? That you have something to lose as a node operator, um, and therefore you provide like honest data. That's the incentive. You stand to lose money if you don't do so. But
Yeah.
if there's no slashing, where slashing would be that you lose your funds, then there's not really much of an incentive uh, to provide honest data. Only the sort of what's the term they've coined for that again? Like future fee opportunities. That's
Yeah.
I guess the thing where you could lose out on if you behave dishonestly.
Right.
But yeah, this is sort of. I'm gonna be very honest. Like it sort of feels like it's just a version of, yeah, we'll give you some rewards to keep the community happy, and but actual staking is not really coming out until probably like at least 2 years in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because right in this article, you could see how they've highlighted certain things that they know they're leaving out. Like they talk about the reputation system. They talk about the Chainlink build program. They talk about certain things where like you could see like how we were mentioning slashing with the penalties and auto delegation, alerting mechanism. There's certain things that like it really would bootstrap the network in a sense of like making sure that it's maximizing the potential. Like it's maximizing like how secure it could potentially be, essentially. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we're gonna see better iterations with time. So like hopefully we can like see it sooner than later because like many have been waiting for staking for quite a long time. So like them releasing this, I agree with you. It's just something to please the community for the time being, I guess.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that. I guess they can also, it's also sort of to try out how it works, but
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see that going much beyond. Is the contract safe to stake it? I would hope they already tested that in
Right.
development.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No. 100%.
It's quite something to have to lock up your entire, or not necessarily your entire stake, but to lock up your tokens for 9 to 12 months. That's probably quite something to ask for a
It's
lot of
commitment.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a commitment. But who knows? Maybe the pool will get filled up. I don't know.
Yeah. Agreed. And like this, there's quite a bit that's missing. Let me see if I could find that specific thing that Jalen God was highlighting. It showed pretty much. He had a picture that showed the different like V like 0.1, 0.2,
Right, right,
0.3, and
right.
how
Yeah,
Let me see if I can find it. Uh, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna find it. But yeah, like it's there's so much things. I mean, there's so much that's missing. But like yeah, just getting this out the door, getting people to stake some chain link, you know, getting things aligned properly where they could continue releasing the later iterations and make so then they can make sure that it's working as it should be. I mean, there's things that I'm really excited for, even if you have to wait for it, with the idea of like potentially earning, let's say, 5% in chain link, and potentially any these various tokens from these different projects that are in the Chainlink build program that are looking to, let's just say, use Chainlink services, and they're giving up 3 to 5% of the supply to pay for the Chainlink services. That sounds pretty reasonable and pretty
Yeah,
interesting. But like, yeah, we'll just have to see. Maybe we'll see it in the point two. Maybe you can start seeing some of that coming in. Maybe like they're just building up momentum for this build program, so then we could see like, oh yeah, there's like hundreds of projects in this build program, so you could already start speculating the potential earnings that you're going to receive from these from the projects essentially for the
yeah, yeah.
services. But yeah, it's very exciting time. I mean, this is just like the Ethereum merge, but like I see it as like bigger, to be honest. I mean, it's a bit technical, but it's necessary. I mean, especially once CCIP is really released and like it's working like properly at a large scale. I mean, you can't really predict how much like how to value Chainlink at that point.
Yeah, true.
Mhm.
And then going into some of the things that were a bit disappointing, to say the
Yeah,
least. I mean,
exactly, to
Yeah.
say the least. Jeez.
jeez. I mean, it was exciting. It was exciting before we got the
That's
latest
one way
we
to
got.
describe it. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. It's like I mean, think about it. Like it's like, oh yeah, link pool and then offering the ability for you to have liquid staking for chain link, and then like you could be able to stake not just on one node operator, but the top node operators. That sounds pretty cool. Like that sounds like it can bring in a lot of revenue for link pool. But of course, they had to make some changes, and those changes really, really changed how you would value the link pool token. And you can't even say it's not LPL anymore. It's
SDL.
SDL.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like they pretty much made everybody migrate their token to this new token.
That was not the
And
problem. Just to clarify, a lot of people were saying like, "Yeah, we were diluted," but that is not the problem because
that's the
that
least.
is, I mean,
Bro.
that's not honestly that's not even a problem because that's just unit bias coming into play because
Yeah,
first,
yeah, yeah,
like LPL had around 20% of the entire pool of all these node operators. So makes sense. They get 20% of the tokens, right? So
yeah, yeah,
however much tokens the link pool community had out of that 20%, they also got um, as like SDL tokens. But then
yeah.
people got mad because they were saying like, yeah, but SDL, you only get half the SDL um, for every LPL that you had, but that doesn't matter um, if the price is like twice as high, right? Which it is. So that part, like the comments you see about that, those are just dumb. That doesn't
Yeah,
matter. But the
yeah.
part that does suck is the fact that they basically the whole reason to buy LPL or now STL was, I guess, two things. First, it was the promise that you could stake your link safely with them
Mm,
because in the beginning it was not expected, and that still isn't really expected. I'm guessing is that you could not stake your stake your link with Chainlink itself, because there would be sort of uh, what do you call it, like a conflict of interest. So
Mm-hmm.
since yeah, I'm sure you can see why that's conflict of interest, right? So you would need third-party node operators. Okay, so you think, all right, we'll buy these LPL tokens, so I'm able to stake with Chainlink or with Linkpool. Um,
Right.
and then it was a rough estimate was that you needed about 2.5 times as many Linkpool tokens
Yeah.
as Link tokens that you wanted to stake. But
Right. So
now it's
essentially, like for every one LPL, you can stake zero point 0.4 link. Essentially.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but in this version, only 50,000 link per node operator could be staked. So that means that link pool in total was only able to stake 50,000 link. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't have 50,000 link myself, nowhere close to that. But there are many people who do.
Yeah.
Um, so that obviously is never going to be enough for the whole link pool community to be able to stake their stack. In other
Exactly.
words, I think already um, with something like 10,000 SDL, keep in mind that would have been like 20,000 LPL, you could stake something like a few hundred link maybe. So you needed,
Yeah. It's and now it's like 12.5 SDL token to be able to stake zero point 0.3 Chainlink.
yeah, exactly. So exactly. So that's bullshit, right? Because that's just not anywhere close to what people would have expected. And then the
Exactly.
even worse part is that previously you were getting as an LPL holder, basically the way I understood it in very simple terms was people bought like into LPL and they got LPL shares, which was
Yeah.
basically just you would get part of the revenue, right? For it was almost, I guess you could say, sort of seed investment. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that got then transformed into like the LPL token. So basically, you had bought a token for the promise of like, all right, you're getting a share of the revenue, and that was up until yesterday was what was happening, because like yeah, you were just getting regular link deposits um, into your account, and that was that. I mean, sounds pretty good now. But then
Yeah.
yesterday in the post, they said like, yeah, because we didn't really take into account like operating costs and gas costs, we're now going to keep the revenue for ourselves, and you're basically only getting like just the revenue on, um, or not entirely to themselves. Like if you staked SDL, so the new token, you would get 20% of the revenue. Um, but that's different than like proportional to your stake of
Right.
SDL, um, of what was previously LPL and that revenue. So yeah, it's safe to say people are mad for a reason, I would say. Um,
No, I agree.
and I don't understand how anyone could do something like this without a sort of heads up. I highly doubt that is legal, but I'm not a legal expert,
Definitely
so
not.
yeah. I think the only way
Yeah.
is just to run it back turbo, as they say.
Yeah. Literally, and that sucks because like if you were aware of Chainlink for a very long time and you got your ducks in a row and you got a bunch of Chainlink, you seen link pool and you understood what it was. Of course, you're gonna buy some link pool because you want to stake your Chainlink and be able to earn from other people being able to stake their Chainlink on, let's say, like the access that you have with your link pool. Like there was so much like to it. Like there was revenue that was promised with like Ethereum staking, Node as a service, Keeper as a service. And there was a bunch of revenue streams that was promised to link pool holders, and now the only revenue stream is essentially like the little bit that they're offering from like the whatever's earned from the node and like from the platform essentially. And yeah, essentially and pretty much this is the website now is this is no longer now, this is what it is. And these are some of the node operators that it's within this platform, which is great, but like I said, it really takes away what was the most important thing. Was This is what we pretty much mentioned, which was node as a service fees, no Ethereum staking fees, and no market.link fees, which is like everything that had to do with the business of link pool, literally. So it's kind of crazy that they just did this 180 literally 24 hours before the actual event of staking. So now that's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they can make this up to the community. This is terrible, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think the reason on top of this that so many people are outraged by this is that Linkpool was pretty much um, one of the oldest
Yeah,
node operators, and
exactly.
also, I mean, they weren't like so they weren't officially endorsed by Chainlink. I would
Mm,
say I would argue in the sense that um, again, if Chainlink would sort of promote one specific node operator, there's a bit of conflict of interest, right? Like
yeah,
they're trying to be a sort of um, obviously like a decentralized Oracle network, and they try to be impartial to which node does gets what job basically. So
yeah,
yeah, it makes sense they wouldn't specifically promote one node operator, but on this new sort of I don't know exactly what it was called, like a staking council DAO or
yeah,
whatever, like node operator DAO, whatever, that they
yeah,
formed with these multiple node operators. Chainlink is a part of that governance council.
yeah,
Like Chainlink Labs is a part of that governance council. Linkpool has like presented multiple times at consensus, and or not consensus, like SmartCon.
yeah,
So it's like, yeah, okay, they were maybe not officially promoted by Chainlink, but I mean, in my mind, there's very little doubt that the Chainlink team didn't know that this would happen, you know?
oh yeah,
And
they
Yeah.
probably consulted them
yeah, and
just to
it's
do
just
this.
like, oh man, the execution on this is so bad because I
Very
don't
bad.
know, like I feel like it is fair to some degree, or not to some degree, it is just completely fair, to be honest, to say, um, like, all right, we'll keep the revenue, or we keep a part of the revenue to fund our business, because
Yeah,
otherwise, if they go under, then no one's happy, right? Like, you could
there's no
say,
revenue. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You could say, yeah, okay, we have to take away like gas costs, and I don't know, make a sort of transparent um, balance of whatever other costs need to come from the revenue before the
yeah,
net revenue gets distributed to holders. But this is not the way. I feel like this is just fucking people over. Like, honestly,
dude. Didn't the team get like 20% of the tokens?
what do you
The
mean?
Somewhere around there, I
no,
think.
Chainlink. I mean, Chainlink Labs.
Yeah. So that's another point that doesn't sit well with me, at least, is that
Either.
I get I get that you have a token supply, uh, where tokens get distributed based on however much people are staking, right? So let's say us three are in a pool, and um, we are all node operators, and we all stake equally as much, and we invent some staking utility coin. Then it makes sense that we each would get 1/3
Yeah.
of that token
Mhm.
supply. Um, so I would get that if link pool makes up like 20% of the pool, then they would get 20%. But as far as the article reads, it sounds more like, since this was also a governance token, it sounds
Right.
more like Chainlink is just there as a governance member and then also gets 20% of the tokens without actually staking anything, because again it would be sort of a conflict of interest if they themselves would be staking, because then since like different from Ethereum, for example, where it's not like people could choose who the node operator is that does the job, right? Like all ETH validators just have an equal chance at validating transactions. But with Chainlink, people can choose which node does what job. So if
Right.
Chainlink themselves would operate a node that they're
Everybody
staking
would
on,
choose
then
that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Then there would be a large conflict of interest, because they could just, um, especially with their business development, they could just say like, "Yeah, come, come, trust us, and do our, let us do the job for whatever you need." So they're not staking anything, as far as I'm assuming, but then they do get 20% of the supply. So that,
I mean, in a way, they're indirectly still doing this. Like, and you,
what do
if
you
you
mean?
think about it, like, cause like now, cause I'm like it's not like they were like, oh yeah, like let's buy a bunch of LPL token and like migrate like everybody else, and that's when I get my percentage. No, they created an entirely new token with more supply, made everybody migrate, made it seem like everybody was getting the same amount, but then that difference that was left over was given to Chainlink, which diluted everybody else.
Yeah, I mean that's another way of saying it. I feel like
Yeah,
no.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
thing is, like, but like doing that, like, what's gonna stop Chainlink or yeah, in general, from promoting this platform and everybody using, just going through this now? I mean, you're right. It's worse if they had their own node and then everybody goes to their node, of course. But now
Yeah.
it's like you're just spreading that risk to just this selection of nodes now, the top selection now, and you still own like 20% of like whatever revenues that potentially could be made. Well,
Yeah.
20% of the token and whatever revenue that could potentially be made from this platform. So I mean, like it's yeah, that threw me off.
Yeah, so yeah, that's another good point that you're mentioning. So for with the SDL token, you get, if you stake the SDL token, you get 20% of the revenue, right? So
Exactly.
you're exactly right about that. Basically, Chainlink, just for having a board on this governance council,
Yeah.
gets 20% in revenue sharing
Yeah.
of the 20% stake they have. So
Yeah.
20% times 20% is 4% of all the fees, um, that 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 sort of node operator council makes,
Yeah.
goes to Chainlink,
Yeah.
for which the only thing they have to do is, I mean, I'm not saying they don't do anything, right? Like I'm sure there are some governance decisions and whatever, but
Yeah.
they get 4% of the
Yeah.
entire pool just for being on that board, which seems kind of high to me.
No, seriously. Like it's one thing if they like if they were making an announcement of like buying the tokens. Then it's
Yeah,
like, okay, you're providing liquidity at least, right? But no, this is just like, okay, we're just printing more and then we're gonna take the extra printed and give it to the Chainlink team just because we know that we can potentially get help from them in the future to grow this platform overall, to then grow the revenue overall. And that is the biggest problem for me because that really did dilute everybody else, especially people that were, retail token holders for Linkpool. It's like,
yep.
yeah, that combined with the ratio being different, it went from one Linkpool can be able to stake zero point 0.4 Chainlink to now 12.5
Yeah,
on
dude,
SDL,
that was
Shows
staking
really
insane.
poor long term planning.
3.3. That's insane. So like imagine someone that had 25,000 link pools and they had 10,000 chain link and they were ready because they know like
Yeah,
25 link pool can be able 25K link pool can stake 10,000 chain link. Nope, not anymore. Now you have 12,500 SDL and you could stake what 350 chain link.
yeah, you get basically fucked over by a factor of like
Exactly.
30,
Yep.
30, a
Yep.
factor 30. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
you basically need instantly, you needed like 30 times as much LPL
Yep.
or SDL, doesn't matter in this case,
Yeah.
to be able to stake the amount that you actually wanted to stake, which is
Exactly.
insane, of course, which is not even true now that I'm saying it, depending on how big your stake was, because there is a cap of 50K. So
Exactly.
the chances of you, let's say, if you had a stack of 10K and you had enough SDL tokens, dude, that's still a slim chance you're gonna
Right.
be able to stake the entire 10K, right? Um,
Yeah. You have a better chance of just staking with Chainlink
Right.
with
yeah,
only
exactly, exactly.
0.1. Yeah.
Yeah, so to be fair here, like that cap, of course, is not implemented by this sort of node council. That's implemented by Chainlink. And
Right.
to be fair, that is better for decentralization. So
Yeah.
in that sense, I'm all for decentralization. It's just kind of fucked up that it's this time at the cost of like holders of LPL.
Bro.
But yeah, it's
Like Chainlink
probably
has
like
messed
a
up
playbook
their own
of
community.
like what not to do, I would say.
Yeah. No, like quite literally. Like they indirectly they just fuck their own community. Indirectly. Most definitely. Because like now it's like okay, the ratio's off. You're earning less in fees, and you got diluted by how much you hold. Like what? Like
Yeah.
what is the point of holding? Like there's no point. Like if you got in right now, like let's say the bottom right now, I guess I don't want to look at that chart, but yeah,
I
like
think
you
it's
like
90 cents, something like that.
you said 90.
Yeah, 90.
Yeah, like let's say you got in now. Okay, yeah, sure. But like if you were someone that already was in position, already had the link, already had everything aligned, you just got fucked, and that's not fair at all.
Yeah, I mean, with the price, with regards to the price, again, being fair, I think here is acknowledging that the Chainlink or the link pool team or whoever else are included in this sort of group of node operators, right?
Mm,
They of course cannot control the price, so whatever happens on a DEX happens. But
yeah, exactly,
they did give people a reason to sell because
exactly.
yeah, if you're suddenly saying like, yeah, by the way, the whole point of you buying the token, or the two biggest points, I would say, pretty much the biggest and the only points, like getting a share of the revenue and then being able to stake,
Yeah,
that's that disappeared.
yeah. No,
So
literally.
yeah, I mean, if that disappears, then yeah, no wonder that people are gonna sell. Like,
Yeah, and then the yeah, and it doesn't help. People. I mean, it's people are just voicing their concerns. They're voicing what we pretty much highlighted. The three biggest things were just it's just like it's yeah that it makes sense. It makes sense why they would sell. It makes sense why they have concerns because yeah, you're right. Like this changed like the way you would even perceive the value of the specific token and what revenue can be potentially generated from the platform and what you could potentially be earning from that revenue. There's so much things that change that like it's like yeah I get why people sold, but it's yeah the day before staking, the thing that was people were waiting for years,
yep.
and link pool out of everybody. Why couldn't it be like what was that other like node? Forgot there was another one. Forgot the name. There's other like node operators, but like it's crazy that link pool out of all of them did this. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, let's yeah. I mean, this is also highlighting what we just said. They just did a whole U-turn and everything, but let's just end it off on a lighter note, I guess. I mean, something that it is pretty cool. And she's it was just released recently by OpenAI, which is essentially a front end where like people can be like a UX that's like a lot more user friendly, where people can be able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
use GPT 3.5, and like it's just been gaining a bunch of hype. Like a lot of people see like all the different things you could be able to do with the chatbot, and how knowledgeable it is, and the different tasks that you can be able to automate just using this one tool. And like yeah, this guy is really well known for like providing alpha in the crypto space in general, and like he's just going through right now using chat gpt to do various things to design a scalable layer one blockchain, design a layer two solution to scale a layer one blockchain, design a decentralized oracle network, various things just to test the waters of how knowledgeable this AI is, and see what the results are, what it can produce, and see whether or not like it's actually something that's like, oh wow, like this is a good idea, whatever it generated, and maybe it could be applied in some fashion. But yeah, many people in the space have been talking about this chatbot. This is another guy from DApp University. I like what he highlights. He highlights the same thing as the other guy, but like he goes more in depth with like the programming and the coding for smart contracts, and like he shows like various different things that the chat GPT can generate, essentially for like code wise. It not only can generate step by step for like creating something or walking you through doing something. It can also walk you step by step um, for using specific code that it generates to do a specific thing. So like it's really cool to see, and like I hope more and more people start using these type of tools to like automate whatever they're working on in any domain, to be honest.
yeah. I think I think it's just a bit more accessible to use now, ChatGPT,
Yeah,
than like if you were looking at something like GPT-3, which was already like fairly easily accessible to most people. But I think the sort of uh, parameters on the site that people were not so familiar with, and that making
yeah,
some people scared. I could see that.
yeah,
Um, and here it's basically as easy as typing something in your Google search bar, right? And I think that
exactly.
comparison is also made a lot. But my opinion is a bit divided on that, because on the one hand, I do think Google has been going down. Google as a search engine has been going down in quality over the last few years. I think a lot of people have noticed that, to be honest,
Yeah.
in the sense that if you want to find something, like a product to buy, right, like something very commercial, easy to find, super easy to find on Google, because they just want to sell you as much shit as possible. But more importantly, they want to sell people who have shit to sell as much advertisement space
Yeah.
as possible.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
commercial products you'll find easily, but if you want to find something that's even slightly more obscure, I don't remember exactly what it was a while ago, but it
Yeah.
was not something crazy or schizo or controversial or anything, just a super simple fact,
Yeah.
and I could not easily find it on Google. And it was just like a pretty, it should have been a pretty simple fact to find on Google.
Hmm.
Whereas with something like ChatGPT, I would say you can find relatively a lot of, yeah, just facts, even uh, yeah, even something that would be a little bit harder to find with Google. The
Yeah.
only downside could see coming is that, let's say, if you're looking at something that is a bit more, or searching for something that is a bit more controversial.
Hmm.
On Google, at least, you could find Google or similar search engines. You could find, let's say, maybe 5 to 10 different links, different websites, and maybe you go through a few of them and sort of make up your own opinion based on a sort of median in terms of information
Right.
that's on all these different websites, right? Whereas with GPT 3 or Chat GPT, I think it's fairly easy to just get an answer that looks like it's correct,
Yeah.
and it might be, but it might also not be. And then if it looks at least convincing enough for you, then it's fairly easy to take that as like, okay, yeah, this is the correct answer. I'll go with that without looking into anything further, to see
Yeah.
if, like, is this actually the correct thing, or is this even presenting all the facts about something that's maybe a bit more complicated. So um, yeah, that's sort of the sort of main concern that I see for now. But apart from that, it's super funny, right? To me at least, because it's on the one hand super impressive what it can already do, but then also some things you cannot do yet. Like for
Yeah.
example, compare um, compare historical data against, like, I'll give you an example, right? You could search, for example, on ChatGPT. You could try to find if there's been any um, change in, let's say, obesity levels from 2000 compared to 2020. And you could ask ChatGPT, like, oh, all right, if there's a percentage change, or if there's been a change, um, tell that to me or give it to me as a percentage. And
Right.
it cannot do that because it cannot compare historical data, um, to, like, it cannot compare one day to another day, whereas I would think that should be relatively easy for a large language model to do. But maybe it's just not trained on historical data yet. I don't know exactly what was included in the training data, but it would be
I
interesting
wouldn't
to
be
see. Sorry?
sorry. I was just gonna say I wouldn't be surprised if it was just because it's lacking in the like being able to solve math problems department. Like it just can't do any maths. So like
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, yeah, because I think there was one example that I sent you this morning, um, of like a math example, and there it was funny because, and I understood why it did it wrong, but the math was so off. Like it had to deal with percentages, but then
yeah,
also just um, absolute numbers. So basically, it had to sum up like one person, five people, and then a percentage, like a percentage of a group, and it could not do that at all. So yeah, maybe it's just that it can't deal with math very well,
yeah.
and
Especially on
that's the
GPT
problem.
three. Yeah, GPT three is very very bad. Now you could say okay, like let's just say you said like 123. Like this is the first number, and the second number is like I don't know, like 1,234. So it's like
Yeah,
123 and then 1,234. And be like, okay, which one is larger? Tell me the larger number. It don't know.
yeah,
It just doesn't
Yeah.
know. But the thing is, like, yeah, it's lacking in that department. There's just things that they could improve on. Maybe like they could be just training more because GB3 is lacking on data. That's the biggest thing with these newer large language models. They've been trained on way more data than GP3, and they perform way more, even though they're way smaller. And that's what I've been learning is that like there's a certain ratio to like parameter that you have to maintain so then it could actually be like the most efficient that could potentially be. And like GP3 lacked very, very much on that end. But another thing is ChatGPT is free. So like it's people are getting hyped and all that because it's free. They just click a couple buttons and they get whatever results they can get. without having to worry about any costs and things like that. But like the other thing that's missing is that it can't search the web. It can't look on a browser. It can't look up things. Once it can, like once they enable it, because it's disabled right now.
Yeah.
But once it's enabled, then like yeah, I feel like a lot more like things they will be able to do because then it will just outsource like whatever output that you pretty much would be looking for, whether it's math or comparing data. It would just go search the web for it essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another interesting one. And it's funny how you said that. I think you said something along the lines of that it's just not trained on a whole lot of data, right? And
Yeah.
one interesting example that I could give from that was again something that seems super easy to solve. So maybe you've run into a few prompts where you asked something about about something that had happened more recently, right? And then it'll give you an answer along the lines of, yeah, my training data only goes to like 2021, so
Yeah.
last year, so I can't give answers about topics that have happened after the date. And then about I was asking what is the album title of this album from an artist that came out in, I think, 2017 or 2018, so well within the period of the training data.
Hmm.
And it's not the most well-known artist, but I think she definitely has like probably like a couple million followers on Spotify. So
Yeah.
like not 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 super niche or anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
like almost 10 million monthly listeners on Spotify. It could not answer that. It could not give the name of an album. But then when I asked like what was the name of the first Beatles album, so obviously a band that's super well known, then it could easily give it. So I don't know where sort of I guess the threshold, if you will, is for that, or if it's just kind of random, like yeah, some things are included in the training data, some things are maybe not. So yeah, if they could make it search the web, then it's fucking game over, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh shoot. No, I agree 100%. 100%. I mean, and that, I mean, imagine that combined with an AI that is like constantly learning from it being used. That's another thing
yep,
that is lacking, you know? So, like, I mean, there's so much to come. You know, this is why we pretty much are just highlighting it. This is some of the things that people have already been building with Chat GPT, which is very interesting because, like, you know, people can take some inspiration and potentially, you know, build on some of their own applications. I mean, it's oh wow, look, a preview of browsing mode enabled, an extension which stuffs in web search results, meaning you can cite up to date information. Someone figured out how to enable. That's funny. See, this is what we're looking for. This is cool. This is
yeah,
really cool, actually. But all right, yeah, I'm gonna have to test that out later. Yeah, see how that works. So
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
look, they just click the button and look now I can search. That's pretty cool.
I
That's
mean,
cool.
even with all the shortcomings of the AI as it stands, it's a very generalistic AI, and we're probably going to see more specialized AIs or AI
yeah,
models come out in the near future. And even with the shortcomings that it is right now, that doesn't mean that it can't be solved soon. And it's still a very strong first step. I mean, you can just go onto the website right now and chat GPT and do prompts. Put in a coding error and see if it spits out the right answer. And it's completely working and it's free. So
Right.
it's not even like that
yeah.
freemium kind of thing where they paste ads everywhere. It's just completely 100% free to use.
And and that's exactly the thing I was also thinking about, and you guys have probably seen this take already repeatedly across social media. Is kind of what is going to be the sort of earning model of this, because obviously, um, they have like the money to keep this going for a while for free, but ultimately also they have to earn something. So is it gonna be ads, or is it gonna be like they're gonna make everyone so addicted to this over the course of a year, let's say, that they're then gonna implement a subscription and everyone will just pay it? Or yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
what will monetization look like basically?
the thing
yeah,
is
I
that
think
you're kind of already looking at it because of the way that it's free input and free testing that you're doing.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's
free
true,
hours
but
of your life that you're putting in, and it's
yeah,
helping the AI train itself automatically. Now, to what extent, I'm not
Well,
exactly
not
sure.
It's not automatic. They
No.
take the data and then they do the iterations of training to then make
yeah,
sure it
Uh,
actually gets to low loss. So that's why that's the thing that is most lacking. But we can get
yeah.
into the solution for that. But yeah,
And yeah, and I also think I understand that yeah, you're right in the sense that you do provide something by yeah, by basically generating data for them. But
but that's not much.
ultimately, yeah, ultimately I don't know how much revenue that really brings in, because you could argue like, yeah, okay, if it's really good, then like how do I say this? Okay, but for example, um, if you're generating data on something like YouTube or um, different platforms like Facebook or Instagram, then these platforms know, they know like what gender you are. They probably know your age bracket, your interests. Um, but with GPT or Chat GPT, I mean, your interest, I get how they would be able to get that, but I'm not so sure. I think it's a lot more difficult to get like um, this basic information that might be pretty crucial to advertisers,
Yeah,
because that's ultimately where the data is for, right? Like they're selling it to advertisers so they can target you more specifically, in hopes of selling more things to you. And like even if chat gpt or just OpenAI as a whole doesn't really have advertisers right now, I could still see how they could broker the data to whatever party, right? But um, yeah, I don't know how
and that's what
specific.
I like about the data aspect of it is that you can get the data, train the model, and you still have the data, so you can still sell it to advertisers.
Yeah, yeah,
So
true.
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Like it's quite a bit that they're gonna they're gonna do with this. I mean just as is right now, they're just keeping it free just so they can have that data flywheel. Just gather as much data as possible to train it to so then it becomes better. So then more and more users keep using it, and then it continues that flywheel effect for a bit. I think they're gonna do, and then like once they get they're happy with like the data they've gotten and they trained it to a point where it's really good. So then they could go ahead and like justify why they're charging a subscription of like whatever amount per month, and then you only could have a set amount of like requests or something. That's what I can definitely see, and that's how they'll probably make their money. And if they do have ads, then like I could see that too, where like they'll just sell the already trained the data that's already trained. They just sell it to the advertisers, and they just pick and choose which ads to run at any given time. And if you don't want ads, then that's another reason why you should have the subscription.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think I've maybe mentioned this to you guys already. If not, then I'll say it anyways. But I think one interesting idea is maybe sort of next iteration of something like ChatGPT or GPT-3 or whatever is something close to the movie Her, where you have a sort of, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but you have a sort of all-knowing assistant which is with you pretty much all the time, and but they also it also works on voice control, and they can just tell you the answers instead of just having it be written text like you see on ChatGPT now. And
Yeah.
then uh, basically the plot of the movie is that the guy falls in love with his like virtual assistant, right? um, but how interesting and very messed up would it be if if a company like OpenAI would release, let's say, GPT relationship GPT or something like that, or girlfriend GPT, um, and then it's free for the first year, but then after everyone gets hooked on it, then they start charging heavily because you're already so addicted to it that you can't do without it. That's
Honestly, I can honestly see that because the thing is
yeah, me too.
like already like it's already generalized as is, so someone can come in and just fine tune it specifically to do that, and then
Yeah.
they just have an app just for that, and then they charge for that, and like I can see a company doing that. Like like have I mean I feel like we've mentioned this before in other calls, but like there's so much that people can do in regards to relationships and these AIs. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
it's
I mean, imagine being a coding engineer and your entire job is based around coding and scripting languages and etc. And before this kind of technology was out, you would have to, if you encountered an error, you'd have to get with your higher up, see what exactly is going on with the script, and then do troubleshooting for several hours at a time just to find out what kind of bug was causing this error to happen. And now with something like ChatGPT, you can just paste in the error script and get a very good estimation of what exactly is going on, how the error happened, a description of everything involved, and how to fix it. And
yeah.
paying like $2 a month, that would be a necessity at this point for any sort of engineer or computer engineer at this point.
Well, Copilot is like in a way
Copilot's very
magnitudes
similar.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is with Copilot, like yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I feel like both. You're gonna need both because this ChatGPT explains what the documentation for the code is, and then Copilot generates the code. So like you could go ahead, like you can get ChatGPT to give you the code. Of course, you could do this both. But the thing is like with ChatGPT, like you have to prompt it in various different ways, so then you can get the specific code you would want. And with Copilot, you just have to start the code off in the way that you have in mind, and then it would just finish it for you. Like it would give you like the various outputs that you can choose from, and then it would finish it for you. So like yeah, if you use a combination of both, like I can see like a team of dozens of developers go down to like maybe just one or two or a few. But yeah, I mean we can honestly
Copilot also by OpenAI or not?
um 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 so Microsoft owns GitHub, and they release that product, but in the back end, yeah,
Mm,
it's using GPT-3.
yeah, because I feel like we're gonna get to a certain stage where, yeah, now some of these models are separate, and like one model is better than the other model. Um, so you rather use the one over the other. But
Yeah,
ideally, it will just be a sort of, yeah, AGI. That's I mean,
literally,
it sounds corny, but it's like
that's what it is.
ultimately these models will be combined in a way where you
Yeah.
can just um, where you could also ask Copilot what the best what the best diet for your lifestyle and body type would be, right? Like it seems like a silly example, but like ultimately it should be a sort of all-knowing assistant, I guess.
See, that's the thing, because like even Copilot is just like it was just like it's just like I guess it's just fine tuned specific for that task of code generation. So like the base model, which is GPT-3, it's already all knowing. But like I see what you're saying, like where it's like instead of just going to OpenAI for the all knowing AI, like imagine going to a protocol that has all these all-knowing AIs connected, and then you can be able to like build, let's just say, a co-pilot by fine-tuning this combination of all-knowing AIs into one, and then you just fine-tune on top of it to do the code generation, or to do like the relationship chatbot, or to do any other thing essentially. But I 100% agree. I could definitely see that. Definitely see that. But yeah, you want to end it off right here?
Yeah, I think we could go on for another 1 to 2 hours, but
Oh
we
yeah.
have to eat at some time. We all have dinner.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Subscribe. Thanks, zero viewer, but we'll see you next week.
Me, myself, and I in the chat.
Yeah, and then this one guy commenting services. That already looks like a scam.